Why did you pick IbogaLife, or how did you come to IbogaLife?
How did I come to Ibogaine or IbogaLife?
Both.
Basically, I've been struggling with addiction for 15 years. I've been through about almost 30 like traditional 12-step based rehab programs to varying levels of success. Obviously, non-permanent. It's progressively worse beyond belief. Basically, someone presented Ibogaine to me as an alternative that might be worthwhile to looking into because obviously it's at a pretty critical point here. So after talking to my family about it and looking into Ibogaine a little bit, I started looking into places that offer it. And to be honest, it was a price comparison as how I found IbogaLife. It was the best price that I could find. I was worried about the medical supervision thing. So anyway, I contacted them and I kind of made a plan to get 6 months sober first. I did like a program that was sort of step down. So I'm kind of working, and I've been sober about 7 months before getting in here just to get my mind straight. And then after completing that, I decided to come down, do Iboga. Then, my plan is to go back to work.
Great. So your addiction was centered around alcohol. When did you start using? You said it progressively got worse. What did that look like? And about how many years has that been now?
Well, I guess, I drank in high school heavily. But by the time I was like 23 years old, I was drinking vodka every day, a fairly large amount, and I could maintain that, I don't know, for about 5 years. Obviously with terrible binges, and I'd end up hospitalized occasionally, but I was still able to like work and drink every day and somewhat function. By the time I was like 29 or 30, there was no functionability left. Anytime I would drink, I would go into like homeless, completely blackout drunk mode, and I would do anything to just keep drinking. I would end up hospitalized almost every time I drank. There was almost no ability to maintain it over any period of time. I couldn't work anymore, but it didn't matter. I would just stay drunk 24/7. That progressed to the point where now, for example, if I was to drink, I would black out almost immediately. I would end up walking the streets or stealing alcohol or doing in a complete disregard for anything.
What was the longest period that you had without drinking? And was that right after one of your detoxes or rehab centers you went to?
I made about 14 months one time. That was about the longest. That was about 4 years ago. After a long-term program, it was a Christian program. I started going to those because they were free, and I lost insurance for a good period of time. In the beginning, I went to like the big money rehabs. I had insurance. I lost insurance. The free rehabs are they're Christian-based, most of them in the States. So I had some time after that, but when I relapsed after that, it was just catastrophic. I was never able to get back in touch with that feeling. And to be honest, it's more scary to be sober for a period of time and have things come back and lose them all again than it is to that's the worst part of any of it. So to want to go through that again, I don't know,
And you had told me that when you were growing up that there was another issue involved, that there was Tourette's, and that in your thinking perhaps the Tourette's and the alcohol were linked in the sense that you were medicating or trying to adjust other things that were happening with your body and your mind. What's happened since? It hasn't been a very long time, it's only been a couple of days, but what's been your experience with the Ibogaine and the symptoms surrounding that and the medication that you were on?
Well, a couple things. you know, alcohol, I've had Tourette since I was 9, and it's gotten better and it's gotten worse, and the damage done by drinking an insane amount of alcohol destroyed my nervous system. So alcohol was the only thing I could ever find to quiet my brain. You know, whether I'm ticking or making noises or not, it's a constant battle in my head, either to do that or not to do it, or who I'm around, or who's going to hear me. And alcohol initially was the only thing that could shut that up for a while. Yeah, granted, the addiction took a life of its own. So that being said, before I came here, my Tourette's were at an insane point. I don't know exactly why. Normally it gets better after some time sober, but they were bad. They are bad. And I stopped medication probably about 2 or 3 weeks before I came down here, because that was the advice. So they were worse on top of bad. So anyway, coming into it, they were very bad, and they still are very bad. But right now, it feels a lot better. I'm less worried about it, whether I'm as symptomatic or not. I don't think so, but sometimes it's hard to tell. But anyway, I'm less worried about it. The head gain isn't so severe or constant right now. So I think that's pretty much all I can gauge that on. Obviously, I still didn't start medication back.
Do you think you will start the medication back?
I'm debating it. I think what I'm going to do initially is get back into meditating, you know, TM twice a day for about 20 or 30 minutes every day, and I'm going to do that for about a week and kind of reassess it at that point. One of the problems with the Tourette medication is, you know, they fall into a class of antipsychotics, and they're dangerous, and they don't advise them. And the reason being is because when you stop them, it becomes a lot worse. And I was on them about 9 months ago, and the Tourette's were better, a lot better. When I reduced the amount, or I became accustomed to the amount and it required more, they got worse. So obviously the fear is that I'll either be hooked on these antipsychotic drugs or take more and more of them until they become problematic, because they have some pretty severe symptoms attached to them. So it's not ideal, and if there's another way to combat it or get it back to a state where the Tourette's were more manageable, like where they were when I was in my mid-20s before the nervous system damage, that would be by far preferable.
The Ibogaine experience itself, I mean, the night that you consumed the Ibogaine, what was that like for you? What happened?
It's difficult to describe. I mean, obviously, I freaking left the planet. I was just, it was, there's no way to describe it. I mean, I'm glad, I felt like I was strapped to a bed for 12 hours and just out of body. It was like, I don't know, it was like a 12-hour lecture that dealt with my brain and the universe from a perspective outside of my own, except that if you quiz me on what the lecture was about, I would have no idea. I would fail. I just know the general experience was I could see myself from a third-person point of view, and the general theme was it was a general theme of it was an earthbound evolutionary type of. It was kind of watching the development of the brain almost for the whole time, and obviously within that I was all over the place. I couldn't maintain a thought process. I knew, for example, I was trying to look at my brain or how the brain evolved, I guess, or what almost the solution to addiction would be, but I couldn't focus on any of it. There was no ability to control my thoughts. It was very scattered.
Was it, so it was visionary? There was images playing out during this?
Yeah, it was visionary, not like I expected it. When I think of a hallucinogen, I'm thinking, or at least going into it, and I'm not experienced with hallucinogens. I've done a couple, but anyway, so it wasn't like I was seeing manifestable things in front of me, like, like a bear walked past my head. No, it wasn't like that. It was more vaguely. It was just it was disattachment from the world as I know it. It was looking at me and the world from another perspective. So I don't know if that falls into, or how you would classify that, but that's kind of what I experienced.
And you know, some people are concerned when they come down, or they're worried about the idea of having a bad trip, they call it. You know, they have some experience with psychedelics, be it mushrooms or LSD, and they're like, you know, is there a bad trip on Ibogaine? Would you say to those people, like, do you think it's possible to have a bad trip on Ibogaine, or it's a different kind of experience? Was it pleasant? Was it terrifying? Was it?
I think the environment you choose to do it is critical. I don't think you want to go messing around with this on your own, in your room, alone, or, you know, try to take this and go see what the club scene looks like. That would be insane to me. But I think in a control, I felt safe. For example, there was a doctor there. There were people around me the whole time. It felt like there were people watching, and I was the center. So it felt safe. So no, there was nothing scary about it. Now, it was completely unknown. I mean, I was never experienced anything like it. So I mean, I should have been scared, I guess, because it was a freaking out-of-body experience, I guess, and I don't know how anybody would respond to that, but I wasn't. The feeling immediately after, like, I remember it just popping out of it, like, I don't know what time the next morning, early, maybe 4 or 5, I don't know, but it was just like, the world just snapped back into focus, and the immediate response was like, holy shit, I'm alive. Like, I remember thinking that was, I don't know what happened, and I'm alive, and then it felt like a near-death experience, I guess, and I've never had one, but that's pretty close to as good as I could describe it. So I think if done right, I don't know, and if you go into it expecting a pretty serious experience that you've never had before or cannot relate to, I don't know how anybody could relate to it. But I think the environment you pick is critical to the experience here, or the mindset I think you should be in.
How do you feel about returning to your life now? Do you feel pretty confident, or where's your mind at going back? Is there some trepidation, or?
Actually, I feel real confident. Two things. One, to mention, you know, before, like I said, I came here 7 months sober, and the desire to drink and how that manifests itself, the thoughts that, oh, I can drink 1 more, 2 more, that reoccurring thought, that insane thought, because I can, but my brain tells me I can. Before I did the Ibogaine, the 2 days before was the worst it's been in a long time. I was thinking about it for hours a day, and I've had that happen, like, before I go into treatment or detox, as it gets worse, because my brain starts, oh, 1 more run, you know. So anyway, it was terrible. Now it's almost non-existent. I don't know if I have if I detest alcohol, but I definitely don't want any of it in me right now. And I don't know that I put much stock into that, because I just had a pretty dramatic experience. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, right now I feel good. I feel confident. I feel ready to go back. I feel a desire and some ambition to do that. And like I said, my plan on going back, I just got out of a treatment center. I'm coming here. I'm going to stay with my dad for 2 days. I already got a place on my own in Tampa. I got job interviews lined up all next week. So I'm going into a completely new environment, but I feel good about it. I feel better about it now than I did before. And if the enthusiasm can maintain where it is now or continue, I think that in itself would be a benefit I didn't see.
That's great. Yeah, well, it's funny. Here at IbogaLife, we didn't used to do many of these interviews, because our thinking was, you know, a few days after somebody does Ibogaine, of course they feel great. I mean, of course there's this sense of, like, I haven't done my drug of choice and I feel good. And what we like to do, since we started doing these, is to check back in maybe 6 months or a year and see where you're at. So that might be something that we'll we'll get in touch. We stay in touch with people, but we'll get in touch and maybe do a little short clip of where you're at in 6 months and where you're at in a year. I think people, when they see a 3 or 4 day success, that's one thing. They see a 6 months, that's something, but they see a year and then they start to say, okay, there's some stock in that. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Just of your own experience here, maybe about the place itself, or the food, or the staff.
I mean, in general, the place is unbelievable. Like when I was looking, like my primary concern was the cheapest. So I was thinking I'm not going to go into some crazy luxury environment. That wasn't my concern at all. But I mean, getting here was like, this place is unbelievable. The property is unbelievable. It's just like a retreat in the mountains. I mean, it's the internet that I searched doesn't even do it justice. The staff is great. I think they understand addiction. The local staff is unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, I definitely want to mention that. It blew away my expectations for it. As far as following up with it, I think it's critical to stay in touch with the experience, because I think processing an experience like Ibogaine, it's going to take time. I mean, your brain is obviously working on an entirely different level. So trying to get in touch with that, either remembering what happened or processing it, I think is going to take some time. One of the keys to that, I mean, I talked to a therapist I know here yesterday, and he gave a couple, techniques, but obviously I'm pretty aware. I think you have to take time to consistently try to get in touch with the experience through meditation or just directing your thought towards it. And the longer you can do that, and the longer I can stay connected to the experience, the more I'll learn from it. As far as following up, right off the bat, if I get sober another year, I'll probably come back and do it again, because my battle with attaining sobriety has been insane. So if I could get another 8 months, or I would, to me, the cost of coming down and doing an Ibogaine is nothing compared with the cost of addiction, at least when you hit my level of it, where it's complete life-controlling insanity, is absolutely nothing. So yeah, I think ideally I would like to develop the experience for as long as possible, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to re-engage in AA and things like that, because that's what's available back there, and I'm going to do anything not to go back to using again, because that's a freaking terrible life.
How would you consider, there's other plant medicines out there. I mean, Ibogaine's kind of the big one for the addiction reset, but a lot of people have some other positive experiences, like specifically with ayahuasca. Is that something like you would consider doing now at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I would consider doing anything that anybody thinks might be beneficial at all for addiction, because we got no answers for this thing. We where I'm from, and the people I know are crippled by addiction. I mean, I'm talking thousands of people have the success rate for traditional treatments is garbage. There's almost no success rate, and we've spent so much money and devotion to this 12-step based recovery, because that's what we have, and that's great. But if there's any alternative that can offer any type of benefit for this, yeah, I'm all about it. And there's probably a whole lot of people that would be too, if they knew more about it or it was available to them.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you.